Today we're in Tauranga heading out with the boss. Conditions are incredible and we've got nice flat seas all day. On the agenda for most sparrows that get into the sport, they all want to shoot a really big kingfish. So today we're going to head out, maybe shoot a few other small reef fish and see if we can find a really big one. In the water we're welcomed with lovely blue conditions. I've got the boss's gun today, a 130 Wettie carbon with questionable colour choices with rubbers and gun bungee, but this should be the perfect gun for the job. I've got double floppers in case I encounter a really big one. We're at the first spot for the day, and we've actually dived here a bit, and I know that the kingfish are going to give me very few chances to get close to them. I've got to try and make my first dive as deep as I possibly can. On the way down here you can see the resident school of kingfish come straight in. The small ones are most likely going to come in close to start with, but no doubt there'll be some real big ones down there somewhere. On my way down I'm just taking my time. You can see there's a nice big one in the middle there. I'm just going to work my way down and get onto a platform down on the bottom here. This area comes out of really deep water, so you do get some really monster kingfish coming out from the deep every so often. Keeping an eye around me, as if a big one comes in, it's not going to give you too many options. I'm just going to slowly work my way down here and then place myself on the bottom just so I can analyse the school and see what fish come in. Here comes a really nice big fish coming into the middle of the screen. You see this bit of jelly actually blocks it a bit. Big black kingfish, but doesn't come close enough for a shot. The unfortunate thing with these big kingfishers, and especially in spots like this which are heavily fished and spearfished, the fish, especially the big ones, become very wary. I've got to head up from this dive, but there's already plenty of kingfish around. I don't want to muck around too much. I want to get back down there, as the curiosity of the kingfish will fade throughout the day. Once they come and have a few looks at you, you're going to become more and more cautious, especially the bigger ones. This time I'm going to go land in a similar sort of spot and just see if anything else comes in, because as I mentioned, it's really deep off here, and what you don't actually see a lot in the footage is the big fish just go deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. Here that school comes in again. There are plenty of nice fish in this school, but on this particular day I'm just going to see if we can get a really big one come in. In a lot of cases, if you do want to shoot a really big kingfish, you do have to pass up on a lot of small ones, and even a lot of good ones, as some fish in this school would be easily pushing 30 kilos. Waiting on this ledge again, you can see it's apparent these fish are becoming less curious, even after only one dive. I wait and I wait and I wait, but nothing's really coming nice and close into range. Well, nothing really big anyway. Doing these dives, I'm using a big long float line as well, but you don't want your float line to be too long, and you certainly don't want it to be a bungee, because if I do get a spear into a real big fish down there, I don't want the fish to be able to tangle itself down really, really deep. So I want to make sure I have a hard line and only just enough for me to get down to where I want to get to. So if I do get a spear into a big fish, I can let go of my gun and my big Wettie inflatable float on the surface can take the pressure off. As mentioned, the bigger fish are becoming less and less curious, so this time we're just going to have to push a little bit deeper and see if we can entice one to come in. The unfortunate thing about big wary fish is normally the deeper you go, the more curious they'll be, or the easier they'll feel coming and approaching you. But in that situation, the deeper you go is a worse situation to actually put a spear into one. As something like a kingfish, the first thing they're going to try and do is tangle you up in the bottom. And at reasonable depths, the last thing you want to be doing is wasting oxygen pulling on them. Same again, all the smaller fish will come closer, and there are some good sized ones in there. Probably the odd good one that you could get a spear into, just like that one there. But as mentioned on this particular day, we're just hoping that maybe a really big one would turn up. But today is not meant to be. Those really big fish, which can be hard to spot on this camera, but they are right down deep there, they're just not inquisitive enough today. Maybe the current's not strong enough, maybe it's the wrong moon phase, but the really big ones are just keeping their distance, and I'm running out of energy and oxygen. We're heading in shallow to see if we can shoot a few more smaller reef fish. I spy a few paper nautilus shells, which also make nice decorations in the house or putting in a cabinet somewhere. Although not fully intact, these are decent enough ones to put on display. The most difficult thing about these are trying to get them home without them smashing into a million pieces in the boat. Although we didn't shoot a big kingfish, we still would like some sashimi to take home, and there's some really big Koheru charging around. That's probably why all the kingfish are around, is they'll be feeding on them. And what you want to do, especially with small fish, you want to aim in front, see them, just giving them lead, waiting for them to swim in front of the gun. These poor Koheru are going to have a really bad day with all these kingfish charging around. Nice big sausage Koheru. So first thing, we want to make sure we bleed them really well, otherwise it'll ruin the meat and it won't be any good to eat. This was quite a cool dive. As you'll see here, this is a bluefish that's in front of us here, which can be quite rare to spot. Behind us there's a blue moki, and of course there's lots and lots of blue Mao Mao. Just an interesting combination of fish to see on one dive. Also on the top of the screen there, you'll see a boxfish. Normally only see these things in offshore islands or far up north. All day there was more and more kingfish. They were never too far away. We had lots and lots of big schools of them come through. All reasonable size too, from anything quite small all up to 30 kilos being quite common to come through. It's awesome sight seeing this. One thing we're so renowned for in New Zealand is our large amount of kingfish, as well as us getting the biggest kingfish in the world. Often not far from the kingfish are bronze whalers. There's one here who was actually quite shy, wouldn't let me get too close. It's funny the relationship they have. Although a bronze whaler will eat a kingfish you'll shoot, the kingfish will happily swim around with them, feeding off the scraps. Most of the day we've just been looking at the fish, so we decide we're going to need some fish to take home, so we can get some white flesh fish. I say white flesh fish as a lot of the reef fish have nice white flesh which tends to last longer in the fridge or the freezer than things like kingfish and trevally and whatnot. Pink Mao Mao have such a nice mild taste and are so good to eat, so it's always hard not to take a couple of them. Pink Mao Mao become really easy to approach if you get down to their level. But just like the pelagic fish, you want to bleed them too to get all that blood out of the nice meat. Just whiz back down there as the pink Mao Mao are coming in nice schools. These are good sized pink Mao Mao, so probably only need a couple of them. Although you see the pink Mao Mao and the blue Mao Mao here together, they're actually not related at all. The pink Mao Mao is a groper, as opposed to a Mao Mao, the blue Mao Mao being a completely different family. This was a really cool spot as well. There was a big school of blue moki just hanging out on this rock here. And right in the middle of it, that's actually a copper moki. Sometimes it can actually be quite difficult to distinguish the difference. It's quite easy here as you've got them to compare each other with. But a copper moki actually tastes a lot different than a blue moki, and I think is quite terrible to eat. You do see quite a few of them at the outer islands, in the Hauraki Gulf or down in the Bay of Plenty. Most of the numbers of copper moki I've seen, you see a few of them down Wellington, but you do see quite a few of them down in Fiordland. I find they're best left alone as they don't taste very good for me. While filming these blue moki, an actual trevally comes in here. It looks like there's some weed growing off it or something, but I always enjoy shooting a trevally. On closer inspection, while I'm bleeding it here, there's actually netting growing out of it. So it must have got caught in a net years and years ago and is slowly growing over the top of the net, and the netting's still coming out through the flesh. It's very bizarre. We still have a couple more hours in the day, so we thought since it's getting later in the afternoon it'd be good to go and try and get a couple of snapper. So far we've got some pink Mao Mao, we've seen plenty of nice kingfish, and now in the shallows I see snapper straight away. First shot I take too much of a long shot. Try and take as many shots as I can when I'm diving, as it helps to zero in on the fish. Here's round two with another slightly bigger one. But don't make the same mistake with this and plant a nice shot. I haven't dived along this bit of coastline before, so it can be a bit of a learning experience checking all the rocks. But as you can see, I got the sun at my back, which is going to be super helpful, even as I make the odd mistake. Being late in the afternoon up in this kelpie stuff here too, it's always going to be really good for snapper. Straight on my Wettie float boat as I don't want any unwanted predators or anything like that coming and eating my fish, and it makes them easier to tow as well. I'm sneaking over rock after rock, which you don't see here. There's actually lots of rocks I look over before each of these fish. And I look out there and there's a nice big bommy out there that I want to check. Not a great angle to this, as its fish is most likely to be on the left hand side, and as I'm swimming up to it, I actually spot a tail in there. So I try and just slowly sneak to the right to get on the other side of the rock before spooking it. If you see a snapper, often it pays to try and get something, an object or a rock or weed in between you and them so you can close the gap. I have a fair idea where it's going to be as I sneak over, but you never know, the snapper could move, so I just want to take my time and hold my carbon gun back. There it is, just resting up for the night. Same again, don't make a mistake with that shot either. 2 out of 3 is a reasonable hit rate when we're going and shooting snapper, so I'm happy with that. Couple of nice snapper to mix in the bag with the pink Mao Mao and the trevally, and it's been a really great day. That'll do us for the day. The boat's just outside me, so I call them over so I can pull in my float boat and we can start heading home. We may have not got that really big kingfish we were looking for today, but we did see quite a few of them and saw plenty of other medium to small size fish. It's a good sign. Just next time they'll be bigger.